Hi, Shalom Aleichem. Welcome back to Breslov campus, Parshat Shemini. Shemini means the 8th day. It was the consecration of the sanctuary of the Mishkan, that Moshe served as the high priest, and Aaron and his children were brought into the service of the temple. Came the 8th day, Aaron took over. It was his time to bring certain sacrifices that he was going into serving in the temple and whatnot. Unfortunately, his children brought a sacrifice that was uncalled for by them. It was called for, but not by them at that moment. And they died. And Aaron was grief-stricken. The day of the dedication of the sanctuary, he lost 2 of his children, 2 of his 4 sons. And there were laws that were given over to Aaron: don't drink, right? Don't do things that are beyond you. That's the beginning of the parsha. The end of the parsha has the laws of kosher, kashrus. Moshe took the animals, and this is very interesting. Medrash. The Medrash says that Moshe told the Jews, "Zos hachaya asher toichlu." This is the animal that you should eat. This is the animal you should not eat. The Medrash says that Moshe Rabbeinu held every animal in his arms, and he showed it to Klal Yisrael. Here's the lion, can't eat it. Here's the sheep, you can't. Here's the giraffe, people say it's kosher, right? Here's the elephant, can't eat it, right? Moshe Rabbeinu picked up every kind of animal, every kind of insect. Locusts are kosher in Torah. You want to have a locust stew. I wouldn't, I wasn't brought up that way. But okay, there are people, the locust is considered kosher. Rashi explains that we don't know which locusts they are today, so we don't eat them. But the laws of kashrus come into play in this week's parsha. Alright, there's a lot to say about the consecration of the temple with Nadav and Avihu, how they went and they brought a sacrifice that was uncalled for by them, right? One of the lessons Rebbe Nachman speaks about when it comes to this concept is that there are things that people want to do in the service of Hashem, but really it's beyond their abilities, it's beyond their capabilities. And people are not always aware of what they can or can't do. And so Rabbi Nachman warns, just like not doing as much as you can is a blemish in your soul, so too, doing more than you can is also a blemish in your soul. Now, how do you know what you can, what you can't? The only answer is Rabbi Nachman's advice of hispoidus. Cry out to Hashem and say, Hashem, I want to do this service. Can I do it? Is it possible for me to do it or not? That you have to work on. It's not going to happen overnight, but it can happen, and it will happen. God willing, you'll be able to learn to gauge what you really can. I want to learn 2 pages of Gemara a day. Do you have the time? Do you have the head for it? Right? Maybe 1 page a day. Or maybe I'm not even capable of learning Gemara. Maybe I should learn only Mishnayos. I should learn only the Mishnah. Or maybe I want to learn Kabbalah. Right? There's trial and error, and there's also hispoidus. Pray to Hashem that you go on the right path. That's the lesson of Nadav and Avihu. Because otherwise, if you don't follow that, you have grief. Like Aaron had grief. You don't want grief in your life, you want happiness. So you want the consecration, the dedication of the temple, right? You want happiness. So do what you can, not what you can't. That's the first lesson of the week. Kashrus, we all know that you're supposed to eat kosher food, right? It has to be a kosher animal, like an ox, sheep, a goat, certain types of antelopes or deer are kosher and whatnot. Other animals are forbidden. Can't eat them. Reb Noson to give you something that's quite different in the laws of kashrus. Rebbe Noson has a most incredible teaching on what it means. Right? It's not in this week's parsha of don't eat meat and milk together, but it's the laws of kosher. So now, what happens when Noson says you have a choice of foods? You're not going to choose to eat non-kosher food. You're just not going to do it. Right? Why? The parsha tells us that Mesimbam, Rashi explains, you will become foolish by it. If you eat non-kosher food, your heart is going to be filled with foolishness. Simple as that. You don't want to eat non-kosher food. You just don't want to. You don't want to be foolish, right? And a lot of the things that you choose in life, you are what you eat. You ever hear that expression? Rebbe Nachman brings that too in the Sefer Amidos, the Aleph Bet book. You are what you eat. If you're going to eat non-kosher, then you're taking the attributes, the characteristics of that non-kosher animal, you're ingesting it, it's becoming part of you. So you don't want to eat non-kosher. But what about in the realm of kosher? There's something called not eating meat and milk together. Milk by itself is 100% kosher. Meat, if it's slaughtered right, and you clean it out, you get rid of the blood and all the things that you have to do with meat, in itself it's kosher. But what if you mix the two together? Then it's absolutely forbidden, even more so than non-kosher meat. Right? That's the law. Says Rebbe Noson, what can we learn from this? Well, non-kosher, we ingest it, we know we become like it, foolish. Or we take the evil characteristics. Right? You eat a wolf, eat a moose, eat a lion. Right? These are predators. We take those characteristics into us. Shark, eel, and so on. But what if we want to take something that's kosher, milk, and drink it? Go right ahead. Go to the udder of the cow, squeeze, and you have milk. Very simple. My grandmother told me she used to do that when she moved from Poland to Boston. She used to go and take the milk herself from the farm. Right? You draw the milk, squeeze the udder, and you have milk. What if you want kosher meat? Here it's a different story. Here you have to slaughter the animal ritually. It has to be shown to be a kosher animal. There are no defects in the lungs or other parts of the body, the stomach, the brain, and so on, certain things. Well, when you skin the animal, and it takes time to skin and expose the meat, then you have to remove all the fats. You're not allowed to eat the fats. It's part of the parsha. Last week's parsha, Tzav, and this week, non-kosher stuff. Then you have to remove the blood from that remained in the vessels. You have to salt it or broil it over a fire to draw away all the blood and whatnot. Then you first have to cook it or broil it to your liking. Well done, medium to well, whatever the case may be, right? And then you're first allowed to eat it. So Rebbe Noson writes that milk is something that it's there right away. Nothing to work for. And this represents all the things that God brings us in life that just fall into our lap. There are many things that fall into our lap, and that's what the milk represents. And when it falls into your lap, take advantage of it. Why not? Milk, you're allowed to drink it. Meat represents the work that we have to put into this world. Right? You cannot eat a quarter pound hamburger, right? A quarter pounder they call it. You can't eat a quarter pounder unless you first take a 2-ton ox and slaughter it and skin it and take off the fats and cut out all the blood vessels and then take out the blood. And you have hours of work until you can finally cook the meat to your liking. Right? That's what our lives represent. You're a tough piece of meat. You're flesh and blood. Go, work on yourself and get it together. But you have to work for it. You can't expect everything to fall into your lap. For that matter, you really can't expect anything to fall into your lap. It's not your business. God put you on this world to work. Right? So work. The milk is because God's going to provide for you, whether it's the shidduch, whether it's the work, whether it's the opportunity of business or whatnot, all these different things. But never the twain shall meet. Never could you mix up and say something that God is going to do for me, I'm going to sit back and wait for it to happen. No, you have to do your work. You are the meat, right? God will provide the milk, right? But you can't mix up the two things. What God is going to do, He's going to do. He'll put things in your lap. Like it or not, it's going to be there in your lap. You still have to do what you have to do. Each one unto itself is totally kosher, 100%, right? You put them together, then it becomes completely forbidden. Okay. Says Rebbe Noson, but what happens if you made the mistake? What happens if you did non-kosher your life? Which means you did something that wasn't right. Is there any way that this could ever be corrected? Right? You want a kosher life. You want a good life. You want everything to be right. And you made mistakes. So what's going to happen? Says Rebbe Noson, there's one law of kashrus that's may seem odd to us. There's something that's very disgusting. It's actually revolting. Something that's very revolting to our palates. A bee. Would you ever eat a bee? Right? Imagine having bee soup, not bean soup, but bee soup. Right? Would you ever eat a bee? No. Yet, bee makes honey. Honey is not only a very good food, a very healthy food. Honey is royalty. Kings. It's on the table of kings. And it's a perfect food. But where does that honey come from? From a bee. Right? The bee siphons it off the flower, right? The pollen, whatever, goes through his body, comes out, and they make honey. This law of kashrus is strange. It's about the only thing in the world that is that way. It is the only thing, really. And yet, it teaches us that if you get to something disgusting, something that looks terrible, and it's very revolting to me, and I've done it, I can still come out making honey out of it. I can still come out with something so kosher that is healthy, it's revitalizing, it's something that can change my life around. God could take even the worst acts that you've done and turn them around and make you into the most kosher person possible. This is the lesson of Shemini. May Hashem help that we all do the right thing. We turn our lives to honey. We live a very sweet life, a very comfortable life. May Hashem bless us all that we all do the right thing. And we merit to that good life that we all seek. Amen.